So I probably mentioned this a little bit beforehand. So when I was a kid, there was only 3 or 4 television channels, and they all signed off. And one of the channels. This was when I was growing up in Oregon. One of the channels had this lunar spaceship thing as a kind of like a sign off montage, a little animation indicating that the television station was going off air. And I don't remember exactly when I first got a glimpse of it, but it was something that always preoccupied me because it was always after bedtime, so I could never sneak around and watch it because mom and dad were quite clever in figuring out when I was up and about. So it was when the house was being remodeled, and at the time, my bedroom, an awful lot of the drywall, a part of the bedroom was being expanded outward, and so the area where I had my bed, an awful lot of the studs in the wall were all exposed. All the drywall had been all taken out, and that was my opportunity to see this alleged science fiction epic that I was always anticipating. I could just like imagine it in my head every time I went to sleep. You get this habit of visualizing what was going on when I would go to sleep. Since I couldn't watch it, what was going on with this this fantastic science fiction space monster thing? I think this kind of correlates with the first time I saw Star Wars. It was outside of Roseburg, Oregon. They had a drive-in movie theater, and Star Wars had just come out, and it was my first time seeing a movie all on my all from beginning, middle, and end, and sitting in the back seat of Dad's yellow 1973 Subaru wagon with a little speaker hanging on the window, sitting there between the passengers and driver's seat, staring at the screen. Because usually the movies that mom and dad watched were kind of boring, so my sister and I would go, running around the parking lot, messing around, being siblings. But inspired by Star Wars, I always thought that this little animated montage would be exactly that. So I always would just think about what was going on. So with the dad off at work for the week, there was only mom, and she'd be sacked out reading a Louis L'Amour novel or some spy thriller. It was always westerns and spy thrillers that she would read, and she'd fall asleep to it, and I would take my chance on the odd chance that the TV was left on, because mom and dad used the TV when it was working as kind of a nightlight. So anyway, taking my opportunity to sneak a peek, that was when I discovered what this was through the dusty gaps in the wall. That this was just a little montage indicating that the television station was going off the air, because you'd see that, and then it would fade off into space into stars, and then the screen would go beep, and then you'd have static. So it was kind of a disappointment, and so I took to that to start visualizing my own story. So that's probably that little cold disappointment is what spurred the story writing. So fast forward quite a few years to watching Star Trek episodes. I mean, I remember watching the old reruns, Captain Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, But it didn't really click until the Next Generation came out, and I was just like enthusiastic. But it wasn't until after the third or fourth season, after a while, you just kind of get like, this is a flying Cadillac. The 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 crew seems awfully isolated from the fact that this is a spaceship, and it seems kind of, I don't know, counterintuitive to be in a spaceship exploring in a ship that didn't look or feel like a ship. It's just kind of a weird thing that stuck in my head, is that here was this flying Cadillac, all the luxuries and all the amenities. And it wasn't until several years after that that I would learn about things like post-scarcity. And that was, I don't know, just there was an edge to the flying Cadillac that the original Star Trek had. Yeah, I know an awful lot of the special effects were bullshit and threadbare, but there was a level of charisma that the original TV show had that the Next Generation had a little bit of, but I think it was mostly because it was borrowing it from the legacy created by the previous TV show. And it was in high school that I'm going to create my own Star Trek. And I labored over, designs and ideas with the 50 other projects I always had rotating in my head. And it wasn't until I think I was out of high school where I'd actually created an 8-page story. Wow, I actually finished something. It seems to be, even today, seems to be a big hurdle to actually sit down and finish something. Because once I've got it figured out, then I get kind of bored because, you figure it out, the spark, it's like, I guess, getting a buzz. You need the next buzz, you need the next thrill. And so when you get an idea and you sort it out and get it all figured out, well, there's not much to figure out. So, yeah, screw it. We're just going to go into something else. And it gets kind of to be a really bad habit to carry on into adulthood, a follow through. So I made this 8-page story, and I went through the process of copywriting it. And it did what so many of my things did. It kind of languished in perpetuity. And then I got to the idea, it was like, well, copyrights expire. And as luck turned out, they changed the laws, twice, in fact, to where I still hold the copyright. And it's kind of luck, providence or luck, either way. And it kind of spurred on to the idea that maybe you should finish this stuff, because there's an awful lot of ideas I've had in the past that, well, you let it sit down somewhere too long, someone else is going to pick it up. So, and since the culture and media and entertainment don't live in a vacuum, eventually whatever clever, awesome, wonderful idea you come up with, if you don't jump at the opportunity, someone's going to come along and pick it up. And I imagine there are quite a few stories in space that dispel the flying Cadillac post scarcity mentality. One of my all-time favorite ones is I think it's 1982 Outland with Sean Connery. Fabulous movie. I equate that movie right alongside the original Alien for texture and atmosphere, and it's just, there's a level of suspense that I think an awful lot of movies basking in the ever consuming, ever wonderful, ever colorful glory that's CGI, they just seem to spend more time on the CGI than something called suspense. Suspense is a wonderful thing because it bases everything on what you see and what you don't see. So that's that. The overimposing little thing about the idea I had was that it wasn't going to be like set characters. Let's see. It's a wonderful thing. I keep forgetting I can pause this while I'm recording, so when I look something up, because whatever. So 2001 Nights was one of my biggest influences, and I like the notion of it having an anthology. Like, you didn't have fixed characters, you had an overall universe to work in, but you had various characters. And I think spaceflight, especially nowadays where you have three business tycoons vying for who can be the biggest space tycoon, Elon Musk and Bezos and the British guy, Branson, I think. They're on the verge of making breakthroughs, and it would be wonderful that they would use competition between themselves to further each other onward and make more leaps and bounds in 10 years than NASA did in its entire existence. Anyway, 2001 Nights was an absolute obsession with mine, and it was done by Yukinobu Hoshino, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it was that and Akira, Katsuhiro Otomo. These were the things I lived with, along with the Crazy Cat. I mentioned this before. So, obviously my drawing style has nothing to do with manga, and I have nothing but endless respect for manga creators. I would hate to say this, but I was never big into the superhero thing. It was always sci-fi, rocket ships, space aliens, and all that. I did prefer DC story-wise. One of my all-time favorite is obviously, for me, Todd McFarlane, Frank Miller. Just, there are so many titans. It wasn't the media that I appreciated. I did read Lobo. I was a Simon Bisley run of Lobo that I adored quite a lot. I loved the drawing style. So, but I wanted and I'm not going to mention the details. I don't, to me, mentioning details, specific details, is like making a promise. And my penchant for, well, I don't say unreliability, but flakiness. I don't want to make a promise without producing results first. So I'm not going to go into like massive details, but the idea with this here is slowly introducing short and shorter stories. And it's a long-term project. So there are other projects I'm currently working on now that I will focus on. But this one is dear, and I will post on Instagram more updates as I produce pages, sketches. I said you look at my Instagram, it seems like, is he going to finish anything? Because he's always posting up some new project, but he's not posting anything that's finished. So it is something I'm working on right now. Someone I knew a long time ago said, you're probably best to either focus on the writing or focus on the art, because life is short, and it's a rough affair balancing so many plates, especially in something so competitive as the arts. So I figured my lifelong obsession with comic books would fit the bill. So anyway, that's that. More to follow. Thank you for watching.